Alright guys, welcome back to another tech channel video. Thank you for hanging out with us. Today we have a really cool product on deck. This is from our good friends over at Insta360, and this is one of their newer cameras. This is the Insta360 1R. Now, I'd like to describe this camera in one simple statement, but it's really hard to do because it's not just one camera. It's actually multiple cameras, and each camera is jam-packed with all kinds of cool features and functionalities. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, first and foremost, like I said, the general concept of this camera is it's obviously an action camera, but it's modular. So it clicks together. It's actually very satisfying to do. But the idea is you can take off one lens and swap it out and get a completely different camera type on there and have a completely different experience in capturing both photos and videos. So I guess we'll start with the different types of mods. There's 3 different types of camera mods when it comes to this camera. There is your traditional action camera, GoPro kind of style, just single camera. This thing will do 4K. And then on top of that, they have a similar size camera, but instead of one lens on it, it actually has 2. So that's a 360 camera, and basically you're using the same guts of the camera, the same module, but you pop off the action cam, you put on a 360, boom, you got 360 footage. And then on top of all of that, my personal favorite is they have this higher quality 1-inch sensor module. It's just called the 1-inch sensor, but it's co-engineered with Leica, which a lot of people out there who are really into photography will know that Leica is a very well-known brand that has a very historic heritage of specifically glass, but they also make all kinds of cool photographic equipment in the past. So that's basically it. You have one camera module. You normally have a battery pack. It comes with this red one here, and then from there you can attach any one of these 3 lens options to give you the type of experience that you're looking for. So now in terms of pricing, it kind of complicates things because there's so many different options and variations that you can get depending on what you need. So I'll do my best at articulating it. Basically, we'll start off with the 4K edition. Now this is just going to be more of like a GoPro style experience. It's going to come with the one action camera lens on it, and that is going to come in at $299. It does come with the obviously the battery and the module, but you're not getting any 360 or anything like that. It's just an action cam. And then later down the road, if you wanted to add the 360 camera or the 1-inch sensor, you are able to do that. Now beyond that, they have a twin edition. Now this one I think is probably my personal favorite. If I were spending my own money, this is the one I'd be looking at because the twin comes with, you guessed it, the 4K action camera and the 360 cam. So it's not the 1-inch top quality one, but you're getting a nice 4K action cam, which for me and most people out there who's maybe flying drones or putting these things on your planes and stuff like that, it's going to be more than enough quality. And as you can see, the quality on this camera is super nice. And then beyond that, it comes with the 360 module, which this, you've probably seen it in a lot of our videos. This is the one that we've been using. We put it on the Widgeon, we put it on the Stratosurfer. It's really, really high quality footage, but it's also a really cool, seamless experience to not only shoot the footage, but also post-production, which we'll get into later. So beyond the twin edition, there's a 360 standalone. So say you're a type of person that you are just interested in 360 footage, you can start with that. It comes in at $429. It comes with the module, the battery, and the 360 mod. They call these little individual cameras mods, by the way. Beyond the 360 standalone, then you're getting into the 1-inch territory. Now just the 1-inch action camera by itself is going to come in at $549, which is expensive, but you're getting into professional grade territory here. This is a higher quality sensor. It's just bigger, and a bigger sensor generally means, number 1, higher quality image, but number 2, it also is better at things like low light. You're just going to get general overall better performance in terms of image and video quality. After that, they have a couple other combinations coming in. They have the Expert Edition coming in at $729. Now, this is somebody who, say you're like me and you really like this 1-inch, but you also still want to have a 360 experience. $729 gets you 360 cam plus 1-inch, and then to top it all off, the Trio Edition gets you all 3 cameras. It's actually what we have here. It comes with the 1-inch sensor, it comes with the 360 sensor, and it comes with the standard 4K mod, which is pretty cool. And it really just depends on what you're going for. Personally, like I said, I would either go for the twin edition or the Expert Edition. That's basically, it's come with a 360 cam, and then you choose if you want the standard 4K mod or the 1-inch mod. Now, in terms of features, each one of these has a whole slew slew of features, and to my best knowledge, they all have similar functionality. So we'll start off with flow state. Now, flow state is the built-in image stabilization that's on board each one of these cameras, and it works both on the action cams and on the 360 footage, but it works a little differently on each. Now, I've been using this 1-inch sensor to chase airplanes. A lot of the footage you've been seeing in the annular wing plane, the FPV cockpit chasing the Stratosurfer, the Widgeon adventure over the water, I was chasing with this 1-inch sensor, and it really performed great. I was recording at 4K at 60 frames per second, and the footage, as you can see, I had a little bit of jello on my quad, so that's not the camera, but it turned out really good. And so the way flow state works on these things is basically think of, it has a super high resolution sensor on there. So say your image is this big, but 4K only takes up about this much of that image. And so the software on board is basically moving the frame around to compensate for my jerky flying on the quad, or if you're running with a selfie stick, or say you're mountain biking or something like that, it basically digitally smooths that out on the fly, and you take it right out of the camera. There's no post-processing, and it's actually stabilized pretty darn well. I'd say it's comparable to Hypersmooth from GoPro. Overall, I was super impressed with the flow state stabilization on the action cams. Now that works both on the 1-inch and the regular. Now the 360 footage, it has the same flow state stabilization, but because it's 360 degrees of footage, it is even more powerful in my opinion. It honestly makes the footage look stabilized. It gives you the option to lock the horizon, and so a lot of these episodes that you've seen where we're flying the Stratosurfer or something like that, you'll see the nose of the plane actually flying in front of the camera, but the camera is keeping that horizon perfectly stable. And in my opinion, it gives it a really cool kind of look, because one, it doesn't make you nauseated from seeing like jerky footage, but also you can see what the plane's doing, and it kind of gives you a little bit different perspective, especially for us, we're doing flying videos, so it's really a one-of-a-kind look, and the flow state stabilization makes that happen. Beyond that, this also has a feature called invisible selfie stick, and as you guessed it, you put this thing with a selfie stick on it and you hold it out there, and you can't see the selfie stick, which is pretty cool. So we've done a couple intros using that invisible selfie stick, and it's actually extremely impressive. It honestly looks like we had an extra camera operator, not just an extra camera operator, but a camera operator using some kind of stabilized gimbal footage or something like that. So it's really beneficial for obviously selfie footage and selfie pictures, but for us specifically, it's really cool putting it on the airplanes. We've been using kind of like maybe a 7 or 8 inch carbon fiber shaft that we kind of made, and we put this on the planes and kind of stick it up off the plane a little bit, and it gives you this really cool perspective of the plane. And like I said earlier, you can see it moving around, and it works really well. Beyond this also has the standard bullet time functionality that a lot of the Insta360 cams have. A lot of the Insta360 selfie sticks actually have a handle with a hinge, and you can spin it around. It gives you a really cool kind of matrixy looking effect. It also has functionality called point to track. Now this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. This is where I think Insta360 is really kind of pushing the limits when it comes to not just 360 cams, but also just action cams in general. But point to track plus deep track basically allows you to tap on a subject matter with your 360 mod attached, and rather than having to go in post-production and keyframe the camera movement to track that subject matter, it's going to use its algorithm to do it for you. So basically, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with 360 footage, as you could guess, you're capturing 360 degrees of footage. So you bring the raw footage onto the computer, and you can literally look all around you. Now, there's two routes you can go with this. One is you could put it on YouTube, and you can kind of upload it as a 360 video, and this is where the viewers are able to experience it kind of like virtual reality. You can either take your phone, or say you do have a VR headset and you can look around and you can see anything. The way we use it in our videos is we record it in 360, we put it onto the computer, and in post-production, we take that 360 footage and we pick what we want to show you guys, the viewer, in a 16:9 format so it fits into our videos, because our videos on YouTube are not 360. So that's my long drawn out way of doing it. Active track plus deep track, it allows you to kind of take that post-production work out of it. You tap on the subject matter, the 360 footage knows it wants you to film that the whole time, and then it gives you a lot less work to do in post-production. So on top of that, they have a lot of other cool and really fun functionality called Shot Lab, and this is like a whole slew of different shooting modes. One of it is like Roll Planet, where it zooms the whole world out super small and it makes it look like you're walking on a planet. There's also Jump Planet. They have a fun stop motion where it kind of takes a picture of you in the same position every time, and then it also has time flip. Again, they're kind of gimmicky, but a lot of people have a lot of fun with those. So all of these features, there's a whole ton of them. Like I said, they're not for everybody. I think the idea is that like these cameras have a little bit of everything, so anyone can really get a lot of use out of them. It also has auto frame. It's a powerful computer vision algorithm that basically sifts through your footage for you, and it kind of recommends subject matter for you. So basically what it'll do, it'll give you little thumbnails, and it says, hey, in this video that you just captured, we noticed there's this plane flying up here. Down here, there's a little dog running by. There's this. And then what you can do using the software is you can say, I want to show this, this, and this in my 360 footage, and it will automatically edit the video to feature that subject matter in your video. It's pretty crazy stuff. Basically what I think Insta360 is doing with this software stuff is they're trying to lower the barrier to success in post-production, specifically in post-production, because shooting with a 360 cam, it couldn't be any easier. You're capturing everything around you, so it's super easy. You're gonna guaranteed get everything all the time. Where it becomes burdensome is in post-production. And so things like auto frame and flash cut auto editing is gonna help you reduce that post-production workflow. So basically it just analyzes your footage for interesting moments and then automatically creates cinematic clips based on what you capture, which is pretty cool. Again, it just kind of takes the legwork out of post-production for 360 footage. On top of that, it has some really nice Premiere plugins. So a lot of the video production guys out there, you're not going to have to worry. You can literally drag and drop these designated Insta360 files right onto your timeline and it's going to work. It also has standards that a lot of the action cameras and regular cameras have these days, such as high dynamic range mode, HDR. Basically, it's going to give you deeper shadows, brighter highlights, basically allows your image to look more like how it looks in real life. Higher dynamic range. It also has low light mode. It even has a star lapse mode, which is basically a time lapse mode that allows you to capture stars as the Earth is orbiting, which is pretty crazy. Again, this thing is jam-packed. It also has slow-mo. So on 360 degree footage, it'll record 100 frames per second at 3K, which is lower resolution in terms of 360 degree footage, but at 100 frames per second, you're able to capture some really unique shots. Now, if you switch over to the standard 4K, you're gonna be able to do 200 frames per second at 1080. So that's not bad. I think a lot of smartphones out there these days, they're doing around 240 frames per second. So 200 frames per second is up there. You're definitely gonna be able to slow down. It gives you a lot of options when you're dealing with slow motion footage. On top of that, these guys have this little tiny square touchscreen, which is pretty cool. And it's actually, I'm always skeptical of touchscreens because they're slow or they just like don't work very well. This one, I have to say, it works pretty well. It's a little bit small, but it works well. And what it allows you to do is you can actually have 360 degree preview and playback. So as soon as you take a 360 clip, you can go in and not only watch it, but you can actually use the touchscreen to look around at what you actually capture, which is pretty cool. I don't know how often you'll use it, but traditionally a lot of the early 360 cams, they didn't have any kind of screen. So you kind of just captured it, hope for the best, and then when you got home, you got to see it in post-production. So this kind of gives you that flexibility of seeing it a little bit sooner. It's IPX8 waterproof. So basically out of the box, this guy right here, even though the thing clicks apart, this is kind of crazy to me. Even though it comes apart like that and it's modular, it's still waterproof up to 5 meters, which is about 16.4 feet below the surface. So it's waterproof. You don't have to worry about it. You're not going to be doing any deep sea diving. Now, if you are the scuba type, there is a deep water housing and as well as a whole bunch of other accessories that you can get for this thing to take it deeper in the water. Speaking of accessories, it's got a whole bunch. As many features as this thing has, they have just as many accessories. So starting off, it has a GPS smart remote. And that being said, this does have GPS enabled stats. So just like a GoPro, if you put this on your plane or say you're driving a motorcycle or whatever you'd like to do, you can enable the GPS stats, and it's basically like an on-screen overlay over your footage. It shows you how fast you're going, it shows you your elevation, things like that. It's actually pretty cool how it works. On top of that, the other accessories that this has is it has Apple Watch control, so you can actually control it from your Apple Watch. I got a Samsung though, so it doesn't help me. It has voice control, so you can control it with your voice, obviously. It has external mic support, which is pretty cool because action cameras are notorious for having poor audio, typically because they're always waterproof. Waterproof plus audio quality don't really mix too well. This allows you to add an external mic, and they actually have a couple Insta360 specific audio devices that will work with this. There's battery boost space, so these little red batteries come off and you can get bigger ones that will actually improve your battery life, which is pretty good. So again, pretty cool. I'm honestly super excited to see Insta360 going so hard with not just 360 cams, because those are obviously awesome, but even more specifically with the action cams. I've really been enjoying both the 4K and the 1-inch. I've been using the 1-inch more just because we have it. Super high quality, the flow state stabilization. For me, it works really, really well. Now I know there's a lot of quad guys out there that don't like using stabilization. Some of them do, but they're very specific about what they like. So you guys know me, I like to chase planes. So the type of flying that I do is pretty conservative. I'm not doing rolls, I'm not doing flips, I'm not like jerking it all around. Honestly, I try to touch the sticks as little as possible. I get the shot lined up and then I let go, and I just try to film the plane and kind of make you forget that there's even a drone chasing the thing. And so for that application, the flow state stabilization coupled with this 1-inch sensor, it's worked really, really well for me. I got to get the jello out of my quad though. But other than that, it works pretty well. The one thing I will say is that took me a little bit of getting used to. I don't know if it's because of the 1-inch sensor or if it's because of the flow state stabilization that I'm using, but this field of view, although it's still wide, I'd still consider it ultra wide. It's narrower than what I'm used to with like a typical GoPro, and that I'm specifically talking about the 1-inch. And so the first couple times I flew, it was definitely a much narrower field of view recording on the camera than it was in my FPV cam. So you kind of got to do some tests and get used to the field of view. It's not by any means a bad thing. It was just something that I had to get used to. I'm thinking I'm going to be switching my next quad over to a narrower field of view board camera that will be better to match it up with the field of view on this camera. Overall though, we've been super happy with them. This is the setup we've been using. This is an extra accessory that is not only an extra battery bank, but also it kind of gives it a more traditional 360 camera form factor. And so you can put that on a selfie stick. This is what we've been using to put on things like the Stratosurfer and things like that when we're doing the episodes. So anyways, this has been the Insta360 1R. This has been our go-to action camera. Now we have all kinds of action cameras around the shop here, but these ones have been turning up at our shoots and they've been performing. So we've been continuing to use them. So we're gonna put links down to all of this stuff below. Huge shout out to Insta360. They did send us these, but also just for kind of pushing the industry forward, specifically 360 cams and action cams. I think a little bit of competition in that space is a good, healthy thing. And I think this is a great example of why that is, because we get new products like this. And if you haven't yet, I would definitely recommend going out and checking one out. So if you guys aren't subscribed yet, make sure you do so. This is our tech channel. This is separate from our main channel at Flite Test. This is where we're doing all of our informational, resource-based content. So everything from build videos, product videos, tech overviews like this. Leave us a comment, make sure you subscribe, and until next time, see you guys later. Thanks for watching.